So my name is Laura Bonamis. I'm a partner at Milbank in leverage finance. I've studied law in Belgium, Brussels, at the University Libre of Brussels. So why solicitor and not barrister? So as I mentioned, I've studied law in Belgium where there is no formal distinction between being a solicitor and being a barrister. Having said that, I think there is still some kind of distinction whether you want to be more of a transactional lawyer or whether you want to be more of a, I would say, litigation lawyer, depending on the firm you decide to apply with or the kind of specialty you want, to pursue. So I chose solicitor over barrister, just having done internships in both fields. So I did a summer internship as a solicitor, also in banking and finance, and an internship more of, I would say, a litigation role. And I've only really made my decision after the two internships. Why I think the job is extremely different. What I really liked about being a solicitor was that it was actually, I would say, not so much about the law. There was much more into it, much more interaction with clients, with other colleagues, with, I would say, other areas. What I think barrister, or the equivalent of barrister in Belgium, was much more, going to court every day, being a bit more, I would say, lonely and just doing your work. And I just felt that for me, solicitor was the way forward. The training contract in Belgium is slightly different than in the UK because you don't rotate, so you don't have 4 seats. So I immediately started in banking and finance. Having said that, I think it's kind of similar to here because banking and finance is much broader than what I'm doing right now. So I think if I compare, it would be really the equivalent of doing 4 finance seats, because I did banking, but I also did capital markets, and I also did some regulatory, so more advisory work for the first 3 years of my career. I really enjoyed it. I think having the opportunity actually to do a bit of everything within finance was amazing. It was also quite a small team. So I think looking backward, I really enjoyed actually doing my first few years as a lawyer, as a trainee in a smaller team than maybe if I had it done in here at Linklaters in London with such a large training intake. So I really enjoyed it. I think I really had the support of the partners there. I really learned a lot. And I think it also made me want to move here and become a solicitor in the UK. The goal was never really to make partner, or at least not for the first few years of my career. I would say I'm very much of a step-by-step person. So I think when I started, it was very much okay, I know I wanted to try private practice. I know I want to do a training contract. So I decided, okay, let's do the first couple of years and then let's see. And then I think again, I moved to London. I didn't quite know at the time whether I wanted to stay in London for the rest of my career. And I think it's only really, I would say, when I reached maybe 5-6 years of experience that I actually thought, well, actually, I know what it means to be a solicitor in leverage finance. I know what it means, or at least have an idea of what it could mean to be a partner in leverage finance. And I think that's probably when I took the decision, okay, I'm just going to do my best and work very hard to become a partner. But definitely not when I was 23 and I started my career. My area of expertise is leverage finance. How I ended up being a leverage finance lawyer, I would say, is by luck. Again, if you had asked me when I finished university what leverage finance was, I probably wouldn't have been able to answer that question. So I think I first started doing more banking and finance, as I said, so in Brussels. I think leverage finance is quite a broad concept, but ultimately it just means you are advising either, I would say, banks or financial institutions or funds, or you're on their side and you're advising private equity funds, basically raising money to buy a target. And we, the lawyers, are really there to draft the underlying documentation between these banks, financial institution, credit funds, and the private equity fund, which is looking to acquire this target. The work of a leverage finance lawyer, I think it really depends at what level you are in your career. I would say that my work as a leverage finance lawyer when I started about 10 years ago versus my work as a leverage finance lawyer is very different. So how has my work changed since I started my career? I would say it has changed a lot. So I think when you start your career as a solicitor or even as a trainee, you are really allocated a certain work stream, which can be quite process-driven, especially in the work I do. Because, for example, most of the transactions we work on are what we call cross-border transactions, so involve other jurisdictions. So your work can be to coordinate local counsel in these jurisdictions. It can also be working on what we call the conditions precedent, so reviewing corporate authorization, reviewing security documents, preparing signature pages, just making sure everything really is in place for the signing. And I think the more senior you become, the more you get involved with, I would say, the overall transaction. And so I think that's what makes it very interesting, is that you really see throughout your career that you still have a big evolution between, being a partner, a junior partner, and a very senior partner. So I think the more senior you become, the more aware you are of the overall transaction, of the macroeconomic element of your transaction. And that's what I found makes it very interesting. So I think where I am at the moment, obviously my role is not only to supervise the entire transaction, but also to lead the negotiation and really to be the main point of contact with the client. And I think the more senior I've become, obviously I have more and more responsibility, but I think it also means that you actually get to create a team, to build client relationships, and that's really what I enjoy, that you're not just being a lawyer and being an excellent technical lawyer. Number one is not enough, but also it's not 100% of your job, and that's what I really enjoy. The fact that you can teach people, you can train people, you can mentor people. You're really trying, after a couple of years in your career, to just really to build something, and not only for yourself, but also when you're part of a firm, to actually build something for the firm and for your team. So the highlight of my career, I would still probably say it's the day I got the equivalent of my training contract. Just because I think the feeling you have when you actually get the call or when you get the email saying, we are very pleased to make you an offer, would you like to join this firm? I don't think it ever happens in your life. I think even when you get promoted, even if you change firms, the feeling you get when you're still at university and you're like, I have a job, I don't think anything is better than that. The top strengths you need in leverage finance, you obviously need to be an excellent technical lawyer, but I would say it's probably not enough. So I think you really need to balance that with excellent soft skills, because I think ultimately being a leverage finance lawyer, but I think even more generally being a transactional lawyer, involves dealing with various parties, but not necessarily in a hostile environment, because you're not in litigation lawyer, you're not in courts. So you're all trying to achieve the same goal. And so I think to achieve that and to work on that, you need to have excellent communication skills, not only with your colleagues, but also with your clients and also with the lawyers on the other side. Because ultimately, again, you're not in a litigation. They may act in my area for the banks, and I'm acting for the sponsor. I may act for the banks and they may act, for the private equity firms looking to buy the asset. But ultimately, you're all achieving the same goal. And I think given the intensity of the work, the soft skills are extremely important, because you need to be able to work extremely well under pressure. You also need to be able to stay calm. And you also need to be able to communicate clearly with all the parties involved. The advice I have for aspiring lawyers, I would say, is to take their time. Don't rush into a certain career. I think the advice I would give is, especially when you're at university and you are exploring your options, trying to get as much information and to collect as much information as possible about the different career options you have, whether it's becoming a solicitor, being barrister, whether it's even as a solicitor, what type of firm you want to apply. So I think managing work-life balance is a daily job, I would say. There is no perfect answer to it. I think for me, it's just really still trying to get your priorities right. I think I'm really trying to still find the time to do both and to always ask myself, I know I will have to do this at some point, but doesn't mean I actually have to cancel these plans. Can it not wait until tomorrow, or can I just not do it the day before so I don't have to cancel it? So I think that's really what's constantly on my mind, is how can I make it work without obviously compromising my work and compromising my personal life. And as I said, there is no perfect answer to it. I think for me, work-life balance, what's also really important is your mental health. And that's also where I think it's important to keep the balance, because if you put everything into your work, I think your mental health will be impacted. So for me, it's obviously spending time with my family and friends, but it's also exercising and sports. So for example, I do a lot of boxing, try to do boxing twice a week. And again, just finding the time, even when you're really tired, you put your alarm, you wake up and you go boxing for an hour. Actually, it gives you the energy to focus on your work, and it also gives you the calmness to do your work. So I think that's why I think it's really important to actually find a time for your personal life, but also for your hobbies, because sometimes even if it means less hours doing the work, it also means you may be more productive doing your work because you've spent these couple of hours doing something else.